don't think of that. We worry about, let's get another degree, let's go to IIT, let's go to IIM, let's go here, there, and everywhere. Collecting knowledge. But the attitude with which we function is of utmost importance. This thought of self. Even a musician of outstanding caliber, while he's singing, the moment he thinks of himself, he sings off-key. The brilliant artist thinks of himself, paints the wrong strokes. A whiz kid in business management thinks of himself, makes fatal errors. So it is this thought of yourself that you need to eradicate. Christ said, "Whosoever shall seek to save his life shall lose it. Whosoever shall lose his life shall preserve it." All the great masters have said that, but you and I choose to follow our own Upanishad, our own Gita, which is me, me, me. Selfish, self-centered interests. Spiritual life is life in which there is all gain, no loss. In chapter 6 of the Gita, Arjuna asks Krishna, "Krishna, you've given us this, or you've given me, this wonderful plan to enlightenment. What happens if I die before I get to enlightenment?" To which Krishna says, if you're a total failure, what will happen is, you will be born. Shuchinam Shrimatam Gehe Yoga Bhrashto Vijayate. If Yoga Bhrashta means if you're a total failure, you will be born in the home of the pure and wealthy. You know, you don't understand the language of the Gita. But let's put it this way. If you join IIM and you fail, you don't graduate out of IIM, what you'll get is $10 million starting salary. You'll get a magnificent wife who's not only good looking, talented, everything, but non-nagging. You'll get adorable children. All that put together is what you'll get if you're a total failure in spirituality. If you pass, you will be born in the home of wise yogis. Now, he understands our psychology. The moment we hear this, what most of us will say is, doesn't matter, we'll settle for failure. Because you don't understand the value of a wise yogi. So he says, he continues in the next line and he says, but a birth such as this is very difficult to get. And if you excel in the spiritual field, what you'll get is enlightenment here and now. You are not promised a post-mortem heaven. Who cares what's going to happen after death? But it's the here and now that we're all interested in. And this is what he promises. So it's all gain, no pain. Now, why is it that the thought of self comes and disturbs us? Why is it that we're constantly thinking of ourselves? Have you ever wondered? From birth to death, from morning to night, we're obsessed with the thought of yourself. However much you try, you're not able to eradicate it. This is because we are haunted by a sense of emptiness, unfulfillment, incompleteness. And it is because of this emptiness, the sense of emptiness, the thoughts go out from you to the world to acquire objects and beings of the world in the hope that this emptiness will get corrected. Have we achieved it? Is anyone successful in eradicating this emptiness by obtaining objects of the world? No. Why? We don't know. The Gita tells us this is because of the simple fact that you are not really empty. Even as you're feeling this gnawing sense of emptiness, you are full, you're complete, you're totally satiated. But for some strange, inexplicable reason, you don't know it. And it is this ignorance of the fullness that causes all the problems. When you don't know you're full, you become a fool. And that's where we're all at. So what is the way out? The way out is not to obtain more things from the world, because that's not the solution. The way out is to gain knowledge of our completeness, of our fullness. And it is desire that comes in the way of our knowing this fullness. Desire is thoughts that go out from you to the world to fulfill an unfulfillment. So desire is defined as the intellect's strategy to fulfill this unfulfillment. So what the Gita tells us, incidentally, we use two terms here, the Bhagavad Gita and Vedanta. You might wonder, what is the difference? Vedanta is the knowledge which is contained not only in the Bhagavad Gita but in a whole lot of scriptural texts. Bhagavad Gita is one text which explains the philosophy. So Vedanta is the philosophy, the Gita is a text. So what Vedanta tells us is, you are already full, so you don't need to desire anything. Get rid of those desires. Overcome these desires. Get these desires down to zero. Eradicate desires. When the Gita tells us this, we misunderstand what they're trying to tell us. We believe they are trying to keep us away from objects of desire. And it is this fatal mistake that has made most of us turn away from this philosophy, because we say, I don't want to give up the world. Who wants you to give up the world? But definitely what the Gita says is, give up desire for the world, because for the simple reason that two things happen when you are desiring, craving, lusting after something. Number one, your happiness is destroyed. When the desire is unfulfilled, the mind gets into agitations, disturbance, and these disturbances of the mind take away from your happiness. This is what causes the dharma kshetra to become a kurukshetra. And when the mind is agitated, you can't think straight, you can't act properly, therefore you will not be successful. You don't obtain the object of desire as long as you're craving for it. So therefore, drop the craving. When you drop the craving, the object of desire comes to you of its own accord. This has been, the philosophy is difficult to understand. Understanding this, the masters, the great seers of the past, presented the same philosophy in the form of a story, in the form of various stories. And one such story that brings about this concept beautifully is that of Krishna jumping into the lake, dancing on the heads of Kaliya, and destroying the heads one by one, destroying Kaliya, the multi-headed serpent. And when Kaliya dies, the story goes that the wives of the serpent Kaliya come and pay homage to Krishna. On the face of it, it appears to be an absurd story, and yet it contains the highest philosophy. The philosophy is, the lake of the mind has been polluted by desire, this multi-headed serpent, because desire is endless. You kill one, another one springs in its place. If somehow you're able to kill the desire, what happens is the wives represent the objects of desire. Objects of desire come and pay homage to you, come to you. Christ said the same thing. Seek the kingdom of heaven, and all else will be added unto you. It's a beautiful thing. You have to get back to your life and understand how this principle functions. I happen to live out opposite college, right here. And one day, one of the college students came to me and said, young boy, came and said, I need to talk to you. I said, okay. And he said, I have a problem. What's the problem? I've fallen in love. So I said, that doesn't seem to be a problem. He says, no, the problem is that she doesn't love me. So I said, how do you know? He says, because every time I go and sit next to her in class, I go and sit next to her in the canteen, and whenever she goes out, I go behind her. And she avoids me, evades me. So I said, stop. If she sits in one end of the class, you go and sit at the other end. Don't go after her. Don't call her. So he says, oh, but then I lose her totally. But you've lost her already. So because he was desperate, he said, okay, I'll follow your advice. And after a week, you see what happens is when people have problems, they come. When the problem gets solved, they forget about me. So when the call didn't come, when he didn't call me, I understood the problem is solved. Then after a few days, 10 days, a girl rings me up. And I said, now what's the problem? She says, I've fallen in love. What's the problem? He doesn't love me. You know who the boy is? The same guy who came to me earlier. The principle of life is you chase after anything, you crave for something, you run after something. Whether it is an object or a being, it somehow evades you, avoids you, runs away from you. The moment you stand up and say, no, I don't want it, by God, it will come to you. Try it. Anyway, you're running after things and you're losing them. So try it, just for an experiment, try it, and it will work. There's so many people who say, oh, you know, the other day there was a young boy who was inspired to work for India, to work for the country, and he wants to do various activities. And he presents this to his parents and friends and things, and they say, forget it, it's so difficult. You can't get a sponsor, you can't get money, you can't get this, all negative talk. Why is it so? Because nobody has tried it. Try it and see what happens. So, the method given by the Gita to overcome desire is a scientifically designed method which works 100% if you implement it properly. And that is Vedanta operating systems. Vedanta operating systems are 3 yogas. Karma yoga with the body, Bhakti yoga with the mind, and Jnana yoga with the intellect. Karma yoga is the unique method by which every action carries you Godward towards enlightenment, while worldly things get accomplished. Bhakti yoga is the shift in focus from loving people or things of the world, changing the focus of your love to God. Jnana yoga is the ability to distinguish clearly between matter and spirit. It is this basic discrimination or lack of discrimination that causes problems with us. So, in Karma Yoga, Krishna in the 3rd chapter, verse 10, highlights one extraordinary gift that we as human beings enjoy, which is denied to all other species. And it goes like this.
Sahayagnya praja sruštva purovacha prajapatihi anena prasavishyadvam eshavostvishta kamadhu. Having created humankind in the beginning, Sahayagnya means along with the capacity to sacrifice, Prajapati, the creator, said, by this may you prosper. Let this be the Kamadhenu of your desires. Kamadhenu is supposed to be a mythological cow residing in heaven who fulfills the role of Kamadhenu is whenever you go to Kamadhenu and say, express a wish, Kamadhenu will say, Tathastu, your wish will be fulfilled. Okay? So what he's saying here is, the human being has one outstanding ability, and that is the capacity to sacrifice, which is denied to all other species. No dog can sacrifice, no horse can sacrifice consciously. No cow can let go of a little bit of fodder and give it to somebody else. But only you and I as human beings have the capacity to sacrifice. Only you have the capacity of when you're at an intersection, allowing a car from the other end to pass. Whether you exercise that option or not is a different thing.
So this capacity to sacrifice, this we all know. But what he says is, let this be the karma, with this may you prosper. Let this be the kamadhenu of all your pursuits in life, means let all your desires be fulfilled. How? Through sacrifice. And yet, what we do is completely the reverse. Sacrifice doesn't figure in our dictionary at all. It is go out and get what you want. Assert. The other day, a corporate executive told me, oh, you forget it. You forget your message of the Gita out there in the real world, as if to say I'm in an unreal world. He says, it's your negotiating skills that matter. The more you negotiate with your employer, the more you benefit. So forget your philosophy. And yet, think about it. Just today in the papers, yesterday and today, you read of a student from IIM Ahmedabad who quit a lucrative job offer, said no thank you, and decided to start a school. When he decided to start the school, people thought he was mad first. His own parents, his relatives, friends, everyone thought he's lost it. So he was prepared to do it alone, go through the struggle and do it alone. But the moment he gave it up, what happened? His name appeared, full, big paragraph, on the front page of a national daily, without having to pay for it. How many of our names appear? Sacrifice. You sacrifice and you get immediate result. You don't have to wait, no 7-year lock-in period, nothing. Here and now you get the benefit. Sacrifice and you will be. You see, sacrifice doesn't mean you have to do some world-shaking thing. It's this little act, it's an attitude more than what you actually do. You know, many years ago, a gentleman gave an ad in the Times of India, a classified ad, small thing, which said that there is a handicapped boy who studies at JJ School of Art, who needs a ride from Pedder Road to JJ School of Art and in the morning and back every evening. If there's anyone who's going from Pedder Road to Fort Side, to the city, if they'd let me know, it would be a great benefit to the student, because otherwise he can't go. There was only one respondent to that ad. In the entire city of Bombay and thousands of residents of Pedder Road and Carmichael Road, there was only one respondent. You know who that was? Mr. J.R.D. Tata. And not only did he respond to the ad, he had the power, he had the facilities to appoint a car and a driver and send the car and driver for him. But he would go himself personally, pick this boy up, drop him at JJ School of Art, pick him up in the evening, bring him back, in spite of all his pressures and schedule of meetings, etc. Now, it's a small thing, but it reflects his attitude. And it reflects why it is that the Tata Group of companies reached the excellence that they did. It's because of the capacity to sacrifice, the willingness to sacrifice. And it is this that we need to inculcate in our system. The 30th verse of chapter 3 spells out the path to perfect action. In corporate life, all you have to do is inculcate this verse in your system and spread it to the executives. And that's all you need to do. You'll achieve success. Verse 30.
Mai sarvani karmani sanyasya chetasa nirashir nirmamo bhutva yudhyasva vigatajvaraha